On October 4th, 2022, Zayama Johnson confidently walked into the Hudson County Sheriff's Office, expecting to interview for a job as a security guard. What could be easier than being a security guard for an office filled with police officers? Ms. Johnson had a slight problem, however. She was a fugitive, wanted in Monroe County, Pennsylvania on fraud charges, as well as having 10 bench warrants in Jersey City, New Jersey for failure to appear in court for traffic violations. During a routine background check for the security guard job, her fugitive status and warrants were discovered and verified. The Hudson County Sheriff called her to set up an interview for the security job, but when she arrived for said interview, she was immediately arrested on her outstanding warrants. When her belongings were inventoried during her arrest, she was found to be in possession of 2 stolen credit cards, which quite naturally led to 2 more charges for credit card theft. The fact that she unironically applied for, then expected to get, a security guard job with a sheriff's department makes her True Crime Portal's newest douchebag of the week. In December 2021, a California man, one McRoberts Williams, decided he'd rob a Wells Fargo bank in Wilmington, Delaware. He handed the teller a note proclaiming the robbery. The teller handed him an unknown amount of cash, even over a year later I can't find out how much, and he fled on foot. Except he didn't get that far, because he then used the ATM outside to deposit his ill-gotten gains into his own account, making him True Crime Portal's first ever douchebag of the week. On Mother's Day 2015, these 3 guys, Matthew Sepetko, James Marullo, and Timothy Walker, and I don't know which is which, burglarized a now-defunct restaurant named Build-A-Burger and Ice Cream in Mount Morris, New York. They took cash, the entire surveillance system, a cash register, and a large bowl of macaroni salad. Burglary makes one hungry, I guess. Local police responded, and after a brief investigation, they found a trail leading away from the scene and caught the trio on the nearby Greenway Trail. The burglars made it as easy as they could for the cops by dropping bits and pieces of what they'd made off with. Parts of the surveillance system, some loose change, but the largest part of the debris path the police tracked was, wait for it, a steady stream of macaroni salad, which the 3 had been taking turns eating as they made their getaway. Almost everything stolen from the restaurant was recovered, except for the obvious, and True Crime Portal would like to congratulate Matthew, James, and Timothy for becoming our first ever triple douchebags of the week. On July 20th, 2022, Michael Conley Lloyd entered a Bank of America branch in Springfield, Missouri, fully intending to rob it. He handed the teller his demand note, the teller handed him the cash, and Lloyd made his escape in a black Dodge Ram pickup. Unfortunately for Lloyd, the escape was short-lived, as his roommate's boyfriend alerted the police shortly after the robbery that Lloyd was the person responsible, which led to his arrest soon thereafter at a nearby trailer park. Upon his arrest, Lloyd immediately confessed, telling officers he committed the robbery to prove a point to his girlfriend. When asked what happened to the money, Lloyd said he'd thrown it out of his truck window after seeing police cars speeding towards the bank in response to the robbery. What makes Lloyd worthy of this video is twofold. He wrote the demand note on the back of his own birth certificate, and he was wearing an ankle monitor as part of his punishment for a different robbery, making Michael Conley Lloyd absolutely perfect as our latest douchebag of the week. Just when I'd thought I'd heard everything about idiot criminals, one Brooklyn resident, who might just be the single dumbest person I've ever featured as douchebag of the week, said, "Hold my beer." At about 7 a.m. on Friday, February 24th of 2023, someone slashed the tires of 7 police cars parked outside the 112th Precinct station. After reviewing the surveillance footage, the NYPD released images of the vandal, along with images of his getaway vehicle, a beige SUV. Now here's where the stupid comes in. 2 days later, on February 26th, an elderly man entered the 112th Precinct to report his car stolen. Unfortunately for him, police recognized him instantly. How did they recognize him, you ask? Well, unbelievably, he was wearing the same exact clothes as the man in the video. After being questioned, 74-year-old Jose Patino confessed to the vandalism and was charged with criminal mischief. He has no prior criminal record, and as of this recording, has given no clear motive for the incident. I believe he makes an excellent douchebag of the week. Meet Albert Bailey. In March of 2010, Bailey and a juvenile friend decided that robbing a People's Bank branch in Fairfield, Connecticut would be an acceptable use of their time. Granted, a bank gets robbed every day, somewhere in the world, so that in and of itself isn't particularly unusual. What was unusual, however, was how they attempted to do so. These 2 geniuses thought it would be a good idea to send the juvenile accomplice inside, as Bailey called the bank, to demand that large bills be readied, or there would be, and I quote, a bloodbath. During that phone call, his young accomplice handed a teller a demand note, who then handed over around $900. When the employee who talked to Bailey hung up, they immediately called 911 while the bank was locked down, trapping the accomplice inside. When he very politely asked to be let out, he was, but by then the police were arriving. The accomplice made a run for it, heading towards the car where Bailey was waiting, except he didn't make it. Both he and Bailey were apprehended without incident. Needless to say, these galaxy-brained individuals are True Crime Portal's latest douchebags of the week. It's September of 2019. Megan Montanaro and Seth Thomas were out riding their bicycles in Fernandina Beach, Florida. The problem, however, was that it was almost midnight and they were riding without lights of any kind, which, if not illegal, is at least frowned upon. And because they had no lights, a car almost hit them. A Nassau County Sheriff's deputy then spotted and stopped them. During the stop, the deputy noticed the two reeked of alcohol, their speech was heavily slurred, and their eyes were watery and bloodshot. After they both failed their field sobriety tests, they were placed in the back of the deputy's squad car. Now here comes the strange part. Before the deputy could even get in the car, Thomas had completely disrobed, Montanaro had her pants down and exposed her chest, and the two were attempting to have relations, of the biblical kind, in the back seat of a cop car, while in custody for DUI. They were both charged with DUI, exposing themselves, and unnatural and lascivious acts, among other things, making them our strangest douchebags of the week thus far. There are no names in this story, but even so, it's worthy of a short video. That said, in November of 2019, a Texas game warden was patrolling the Little Brazos River when he happened upon two men fishing. Neither man had a valid fishing license, which is stupid enough, but one man wasn't even carrying his ID. The guy without his ID took his stupidity several steps further, however. See, he was a wanted man, with two outstanding warrants, although what those warrants were for isn't specified. Hoping to go home without visiting the local jail, the man gave the warden the name of a friend. There wasn't just one problem with that approach, but it wound up being the biggest one. Unbeknownst to the guy who gave the false name, that friend also had a warrant, which got him arrested anyway. Karma works in mysterious ways, don't you think? The truth was made known when he confessed to the subterfuge as he was being booked into the jail later that day, which added a new charge, failure to identify fugitive, which is, I believe, a felony. All of this makes him our newest douchebag of the week. On November 30th, 2020, two men, Raymond Stavig and Derek Schertz, decided that a good activity for them that day would be to drive around to various businesses and steal from them. And it was kind of working out for them, at least until they got to a Kohl's in Clackamas County, Oregon. As Schertz went inside to grab whatever he could, Stavig waited outside in the car, ready for a quick getaway. The problem, however, and the one that got them caught, was that the car battery died while Schertz was inside the store. The two men were soliciting other customers for a jump start when the police arrived and made the arrests. The car itself was filled with stolen goods, such as phones, laptops, clothing, stolen credit cards and a credit card reader, illicit drugs, and counterfeit money. Oh, and the car was stolen too. Gee, who would have thunk? All of which makes them both True Crime Portal's first double douchebags of the week. On the 28th of November 2011, Nathaniel Coleman of Immokalee, Florida, entered Maryland's boutiques, looking to make some quick cash by selling some rather expensive pieces of jewelry. Not really a big deal, one would think. I mean, thousands of people pawn things every day, right? Except the jewelry wasn't his to sell. He had stolen it when he broke into a house earlier that day, but he figured the store manager wouldn't know that small detail. But she did know it, or at least suspected it. You see, she thought it looked suspiciously like some of her own jewelry. Instead of panicking, or accusing him outright, she excused herself to call her husband, who then called the police while she kept Coleman at the store. Both the police and her husband arrived at the store almost simultaneously, and Coleman was taken into custody. Officers then accompanied the husband to the couple's home, finding that the back door had been forced open and the house had been ransacked. Coleman was charged with grand theft between $5,000 and $10,000, attempting to defraud a pawnbroker to pawn items over $300, and dealing in stolen property, making him our latest douchebag of the week. Criminals leave all manner of evidence behind when they commit their crimes. DNA, blood, or other bodily fluids, hair, fingerprints, etc. What's not normally left behind is something that immediately and conclusively proves the offender's identity. Someone should have told Zachary Tentoni that prior to June 24, 2013. That would be the day he mugged a woman in the Dorchester area of Boston, Massachusetts. Unfortunately for Zach, while in the act of grabbing the woman's wallet and making his getaway, he dropped 2 shopping bags. In the irony of ironies, one of the bags contained 2 items that Zach probably wanted to keep with him, a letter addressed to him, and his birth certificate. He was arrested very early the next morning, about 1 block from the scene of the crime. At first, he tried to claim he was someone else, but he was conclusively identified by the victim, and he was then charged with unarmed robbery. In any case, I'm pretty sure losing your birth certificate while committing a crime qualifies you for Douchebag of the Week. I have long thought this to be an urban legend, but apparently it's happened in real life, at least once. Because Florida man. In June of 2018, one Douglas Kelly from Hawthorne, Florida, called the Putnam County Sheriff's Office to request that what he thought to be an illicit substance, which he had purchased a week earlier, be tested. Why, you ask? Well, it seems he had a bad reaction to it and wanted to make sure it was authentically the substance he paid for. And, if it wasn't, he wanted to press charges against the seller. The sheriff's office said, "Sure, bring it on down to the station. We'll test it for you." No problem. Kelly actually brought the crystalline substance to the sheriff's office, but when it tested positive, he was arrested for possession of methamphetamine and booked into the Putnam County Jail. I'm reasonably certain this won't be the last time I say Florida man is our newest douchebag of the week. At the tail end of April 2008, Charles Ray Fuller walked into a bank in Fort Worth, Texas, looking to cash a check. He claimed the check was given to him by his girlfriend's mother to help him start his own record business. Unfortunately for Mr. Fuller, bank employees refused to cash the check, probably because there wasn't enough money in the entire county, let alone the bank, to cover the check. But just in case, the now suspicious bank employees then contacted his girlfriend's mother, who informed him that she did not give him permission to take or cash the check. That lack of permission prompted the bank employees to call the police, who arrested Fuller for forgery, possession of marijuana, and unlawful carrying of a firearm. The kicker was that the forged check that Fuller wanted to cash was written for, and I kid you not, $360 billion. That's billion with a B. That's also 360 billion reasons Charles Ray Fuller is our latest douchebag of the week.